Okay, so today we're going to be doing Unit 1 Notes 4. This is Miss Humbert, and we're going to talk about graphing inequalities. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that's going to look like. So first and foremost, it's really important that you're able to graph in both slope-intercept and standard form. So that's kind of what we talked about on the notes yesterday. So for the first part, it says graph the following equations. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and graph those. Well, first I see that I focus in on this 5. This 5 is at the end. The first equation is in slope-intercept form. So then I know I need to go ahead and graph using the y-intercept here. So I'm going to go up 5 on the y-axis, and that puts me at that point right here. Then I see that my slope is -3. Now keep in mind that the slope, -3, is the same as -3 over 1. So I'm going down 1, 2, 3 over 1. And I'm plotting that point. Once I have 2 points, I can go ahead and I can connect my line. Now, in order to graph example number 2, we have to put it into slope-intercept form because that's how we know how to graph it. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to solve this for y. By solving it for y, I can get it into slope-intercept form. So the first thing I'm going to do is add x to both sides. So then I have 3y is equal to x plus 6. The next thing I want to do is divide both sides by 3. So then I have y is equal to, and I want to divide each part by 3. Well, x divided by 3, that's going to be the same as 1/3 x. And then 6 divided by 3 is going to be 2. So then I have y is equal to 1/3 x plus 2. So I go up here, and I'm going to go ahead and have you guys graph this. So I want you guys to graph this equation right here for this second one. Now the next example is kind of confusing. X is equal to 5. There's no y involved. Whenever we have something that's just x equals, that's going to be a vertical line. If I had something that's just y equals, that's going to be a horizontal line. So because it's just an x, I'm going to find 5 on the x-axis, which is right here. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a vertical line through x is equal to 5. So that's how you do those horizontal versus vertical lines. Let's take a look at these symbols. Again, it's going to take you a little bit of time to read through these. So feel free to... Okay, so let's start here first. So you don't have to write this part down, I don't believe. I just kind of want you to listen. Okay, so less than is when the alligator's facing away. Okay, so that's not as much as or fewer than. So this is all what you did on notes number 1. Okay, this is all what you did on notes number 1. Then we have greater than or equal to, greater than, which means more than, less than or equal to, which is at most or no more than, and greater than or equal to, which is no less than and at least. So so if you can't really remember these, go back and look at notes 2, I think it is, and that'll give you more in-depth information. This is just a little bit of a review. So let's take a look at doing inequalities when given 2 variables. So this is what I want you to write in that chart. Okay, so what it looks like is you're going to have 2 variables in it. So you're going to have something like y is greater than 3x plus 5, or 2x minus 4y is less than 8. All right, so since they have 2 variables, we can't just solve them like normal inequalities. So we actually have to graph them to find the solutions. So you don't have to write this down verbatim, which means word for word. Write down what you need to remember this, but I do want you to have this general idea written down on your note sheet. Let's take a look at our steps. So we're actually going to do number 4 along with our steps. So let's take a look at our first step. So I want you kind of writing both of those down. Come on. So the first step is to put the equation into slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is that it's solved for y. So maybe make a note to yourself that that means solved for y. Okay? Then, so we look at number 4. That's already true for number 4. Let's take a look at our second step. Our second step is to decide what line to make. Okay, so this is really, really, really important. This is the most important part of the notes today. So it's a dotted line if the inequality is a less than or a greater than. Okay, so if there's no line underneath, it's going to be dotted. If there is a line underneath, it's going to be a solid line. Well, I look at my symbol right here, and there is a line underneath. So my line is going to be solid. Next, let's take a look at the third step. The third step, decide where to shade. So if it is greater than or equal to, I always say if the alligator is eating the y, then you're going to shade up. If the alligator is eating the y, you're going to shade up. If the alligator is not eating the y, you're going to shade down. So I look at my problem in number 4, and my alligator's not eating my y, so I'm going to shade down. All right, last but not least, let's take a look at the 4th one here. And it just says graph the inequalities. So we have everything we need to. So I know I need a solid line, and I'm going to shade down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to plot my y-intercept, which is 3. So I'm crossing the y-axis at 3. Then my slope is 2. Remember that slope is the same as 2 over 1. So I'm going to go up 2 over 1 and plot that point. So I have this point here and this point here. And I'm going to have a solid line between them because of that line underneath the inequality symbol. Then I notice that I need to shade down. So what I do when I'm shading is I go ahead and I pick a point on the line. I just pick any point. I just put my pen on it. And then when I say shade down, all I'm going to do is from that point on the line, I'm going to go down. That worked well, didn't it? From that point on the line, I'm going to go down. And that's wherever I land, that's what I'm shading in because I went down. All right, let's take a look at another example. Let's take a look at number 5. So first thing I'm going to do, get it in slope-intercept form. That's already done. Next, I'm going to decide whether I'm going to have a dotted or a solid line. And I know that I'm going to have a dotted line because there's no line underneath that inequality symbol. And then I notice that the alligator is eating the y. Because the alligator is eating the y, I'm going to shade up once I get graphing. Some nice handwriting I have. I'm going to shade up. So we're going to cross the y-axis at a -6 because that's my y-intercept. And then my slope, there's no number out in front of it. So that number is just a 1, which is same as having a slope of 1 over 1. So up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1. So that's my slope. And connecting all of those points, I'm going to have a dashed line. What that dashed line tells us is that the line itself is not included as a solution. Kind of like when you had an open circle on notes 2, that meant that that's not included as a solution. Then I know I need to shade up. So I'm going to pick a point on the line, then I'm just going to go up from it. And where I land is where I'm going to shade. All right, let's take a look at number 6, and then I'm going to have you guys do number 7 on your own. So I notice that a couple of things. So it's already in slope-intercept form. I notice that I have a line underneath my inequality symbol, and it's facing towards my y. So it's solid, and I'm shading up. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. I'm crossing the y-axis at 2, and then I'm going down 4 over 1, and that's another point. And I'm going to have a solid line connecting those 2 points. Then I'm going to pick a spot on my line, and then I'm just going to shade up from it. And where my where I land, that's where I shade. Okay? And so again, we'll be working on this. If you don't quite get it, just do the best you can right now, and we'll work on it more in class tomorrow. So I'm going to have you guys go ahead and try number 7 on your own. Let's take a look at number 8. These are in standard form. So that's where step number 1 is really going to come in handy. So for this one, we have to actually solve it for y. So we have 3x minus 2y is equal to -6. So first thing I'm going to do is subtract 3x from both sides. That's a positive 3x, so I need to subtract 3x from both sides. So then I have -2y is equal to -3x minus 6. Last thing I need to do to solve for y is to divide both sides by a -2. So when I get y is equal to, now I'm going to have -3 over -2. That's going to turn into a positive 3/2. And -6 divided by -2, that's going to be a positive 3. Now I somehow managed to leave out my inequality symbol. Don't do that because I made a naughty mistake. And here's why. So we have that greater than symbol right here. We have that greater than symbol right here. But what you notice in this step right here is I divided by a negative number. Think back to those alarm bells in Unit 2. When you divide by a negative number, what do you need to do to the inequality symbol? You need to flip it. Okay, so the reason why it's bad, I forgot that in inequality symbols, I would have not flipped my sign. And you can guess that if there's a multiple choice question at any point, that I would have left that mistake as one of the options. So you need to make sure that you flip the sign whenever you divide or multiply by a negative number when you're solving. So this should have an x in it. So the equation I'm graphing is y is less than 3/2 x plus 3. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we know we're crossing the y-axis at 3. And then my slope is 3 over 2. So I'm going up 3 over 2. And I'm plotting that point. Okay, so now I notice that I do not have a dash under a line underneath my inequality symbol. So I know that I have a dashed line connecting those. And hopefully your dashed lines are a lot more pretty than mine are. Then I notice I look at my end result. So I notice at my end result that my alligator is facing away from the y. So I need to shade down. So I'm going to pick a spot on the line, I'm going to go down. And I'm going to go ahead and shade that in. So that's my answer for number 8. Let's take a look at number 9. So first thing we need to do is solve number 9 for y. So I'm going to do 5x plus y is less than or equal to 10. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5x from both sides. And then I get that y is less than or equal to a negative 5x plus 10. So now I'm going to go ahead and graph that. Well, we have a problem, right? Because our graph doesn't go up to 10. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go by 2's. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that's my 10 spot right there. Now, that makes the slope a little bit tricky because we're going by 2. So we need to go down 5 and over 1. So that gets a little bit confusing. So I'm going to go down 2, 4, 5 is going to be halfway, and over 1. So really my next point is kind of in the middle of this box right here. Let's figure out what kind of line we need. Well, I see at number 9 that there's a solid line underneath the less than or equal to symbol. Okay, I need a solid line then. Then I know that I need to go, and I've never divided by a negative number at any point, so my inequality symbol stayed the same. And I notice that it's less than. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a spot on the line, and I'm going to go down from it. That would stop popping up. That'd be great. Pick a spot on the line and go down from it. So I'm going to be shading in here. Now that part can be tricky when the lines are almost vertical like this one, so if you're stuck on it in the homework, please feel free to ask me about it tomorrow. Alright, let's have you guys try this one on your own. So you're going to solve it for y, graph it, and make sure you do your shading. Last but not least, let's take a look at this one. So to solve for y, you need to divide both sides by a negative 2. Now remember, when you divide by a negative, you need to have little alarm bells going off in your head that tells you to flip the sign. So now I'm going to do 4 divided by negative 2 is going to give me negative 2. Negative 10 divided by negative 2 is going to give me positive 5. So now I know, okay, first of all, there's no line underneath, so I need a dashed line, and the alligator is eating the y, so I'm shading up. So we're crossing the y-axis at 5, and then we're going down 2 over 1, and we have a dashed line. And then, because the alligator is eating the y, we're going to shade up from the line. So that right there is your final answer. Make sure you take your Schoology quiz, and that concludes your notes for today. Thank you.